Okay, so our first question, why do you believe this casual chain makes sense in our context?
Um, well, for a number of reasons, but mainly because the barriers we identified are psychological ones. And in order for systems change to happen, behaviors need to change, and ultimately for behaviors to change, mental models and psychological frameworks need to change. The way we think needs to change. Um, and so by starting with a gamified solution and a safe fail environment, we're lowering the stakes of entry, so making it more accessible to people to build the confidence that they need to be able to use in real world situations when faced with polarizing issues. Um, and we're hoping that this skill acquisition of confidence, of reframing and engaging with polarizing issues, um, can lead to build the confidence and muscle memory to be used in the real world. Um, and the logic model helps us to remain focused in doing so, so we're not too mired in multiple psychological frameworks, but only focused on the ones that we do value and that we highlighted in our how might we questions, keeping it specific to the Utah context. So it's really creating a tool that allows for neutral language within families who might otherwise rely on emotional or dogmatic arguments. And so that's the importance of our logic model of the flow of things, um, is to keep those things in mind. Um, what part of our theory of change needs future validation? Um, what needs to be prototyped first and why? And what risks and assumptions are present and needs to be prioritized when testing?
I think kind of one of the first things is the transferability of the skills. So kind of bringing this from the digital world into the real world. Because it's kind of different if we're talking to an AI system on a computer or a phone versus, talking to a friend, family member. So we need to kind of bridge that gap per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other kind of thing we want to look at, or what we should prototype first, is that AI simulation and gamified interface.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our first grab thing that pulls people in, like our value proposition per se. So we want something, let's see. So if the simulation feels canned or biased or isn't like engaging enough to keep a user's attention.
Mm-hmm. They're like less willing to want to interact with the
Right.
with the profile if it's not useful to
Mhm.
them. Yeah.
And then we kind of have these risks and assumptions we need to prioritize. The first one is kind of the assumption of willingness.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to feel less polarized. And then kind of like this reality of it is people do find tribalism rewarding. We like to stay in our groups. We like to stay in our comfort zones.
Yeah.
So we kind of just really need to test how to hook users, who weren't looking for that solution initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's also the kind of troll risk. So obviously when you use some things online, AI especially, you kind of like to test it, troll it. And with our prototype, what we did try to do is integrate safety rails. So we have, a timeout page for if somebody is using hate speech or if they're being unproductive towards their conversation. And I think the consequence to this is that the AI might feel too restrictive. It might feel some form of censorship, causing users to be disengaged with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the key of finding a balance between the safety fail of this and then the
Limitations.
limitations, right?
Yeah.
So for the third question, where does our idea rely on the policy or institutional change? Where does it rely on relational, cultural, or behavioral shifts?
Well, first and foremost, the goal of this, especially in our demographic of choice, which are UVU students and UVU campus, um, is the integration into the classroom, where this tool can be used for students to engage with in class or with or in conjunction with curriculum. And so that's where policy is most important, because there needs to be a shift where discourse training is viewed as a core competency, similar to writing or math, which is super critical in today's society. If people can learn to engage with opposing views within the classroom, just like they're learning how to add numbers, we'll live in a more civil society for sure. And then another policy that's kind of at a greater scale is the tech standards. Eventually we'll have to be more focused on how social media is being used as far as privacy is concerned and where this data is being stored, which is a controversial thing in and of itself. And so being aware of where the policies are concerning tech and social media platforms is critical in order to guide the types of things that we will be prompting people and where that information is being saved. As far as it relying on relational, cultural, and behavioral shifts, it's totally relational, because it depends on a shift where understanding is valued the same amount as being right. And it's a behavioral change because the core of our outcomes are focused on increasing willingness to listen and decreasing anxiety, and both of which and the others depend on individual users making the conscious choice to apply their simulation training in high pressure real world environments. And that's where this intervention really shines through. The theory of change is that the virtual simulations are mappable into real life. And if that doesn't happen, then there needs to be some revision of our intervention. We need to make some shifts in our activities, the things we're doing and the outputs we're measuring, in order to have this shift in outcomes and ultimately make an impact on the system.